Today, we are in a waiting phase. A doctrinal declaration has been sent to Rome, and we are awaiting a decision of the Pope. It would be an act of justice, in fact, to be just reintegrated in a more visible way in the church. That's all we are talking about here. Our fight for 40 years has been to defend the fullness of the Catholic faith. However, it is not true to say that the unity of the church is only based on the faith. The church is not a democracy, and the Society of St. Pius X is not neither a democracy.
Some people have used the recent interview of Bishop Tollers with Catholic News Service to indicate or argue that perhaps he's backing down or softening his position on doctrinal questions that affect the faith.
That makes no sense to me. How can you use one quote from an interview and say the position has changed? I mean, take a conference where Bishop Tollers explained his position on religious liberty and say, okay, this position has changed from the past. Okay, but take one sentence which has been used by a journalist from an interview of an hour, take a few, not even a minute, and say this is an official position of Bishop Tollers. It's dishonest. It doesn't make any sense.
Father, another common objection or argument that we have been seeing is that there is perhaps a change in the strategy of the society or in the position that a doctrinal resolution would be necessary before any kind of canonical regularization. Has there in fact been a change in the society's position?
First, I think it's important to remember that discussions on doctrinal matters have taken place. So there were already a doctrinal approach to the relations with Rome. We must remember also the example of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. In 1988, Archbishop Lefebvre signed a doctrinal declaration, more known as a protocol of 88, in which he didn't look for a doctrinal resolution before going to practical aspect. So I think that's important to
Sure. But then, couldn't one argue that, in fact, since the Archbishop did not end up signing the protocol or changed his mind after signing the protocol, have circumstances changed since 1988? Is there any reason to believe that Archbishop Lefebvre would do something different today?
Yes, the circumstances have changed. The reason why Archbishop Lefebvre refused the protocol the next day was that he could see that Rome was not prepared to give him a bishop. That was really the goal of Archbishop Lefebvre, is to obtain the consecration of at least one bishop. He saw that Rome was not prepared to agree with this, and therefore he went on with the consecration. Today, the situation of the society is different. We have grown, we have bishops, and it is a strength for us. It is, in these relations with Rome, it is definitely a strength. So yes, the circumstances have changed on our side since 1988. And there are also certain signs that in Rome certain things have changed as well.
Father, you mentioned and spoke of changed circumstances in recent years. Could you perhaps give us some practical examples of these circumstances?
I think the first important point is the doctrinal discussions we had with Rome. That's essential in our actual situation. We were able to present to Rome our position. It was never known in Rome as well as today. And as an effect of these discussions with Rome, we could already see that a spread of critics of Vatican II, Monsignor Gherardini, for instance, is a good example. So it's important to see these signs. Now, you had also, obviously, the motu proprio. There are more and more masses celebrated in the Tridentine Mass, in Rite. You have also efforts in Rome to restore a certain discipline in the church, at least with the clergy, with the sisters here in the United States. All that are definitely going into a different direction than it was a few years ago. And I think the most important, which is a sign that is to come, is really the prelature, the personal prelature. Is that a structure that will give us the possibility of continuing our work? Is that a structure that will give us the ability to remain as we are? And if it is there, well, this is a big sign of a change in Rome and a sign that we have the possibility of continuing our work for the restoration of tradition in the church.
Father, going back a little bit to the question of a doctrinal agreement or recognition between Rome and the society, what would you say to the argument that the faith is what's most important, and therefore, if we're not entirely on the same page there, we cannot move forward?
Well, the faith is definitely what matters the most. Our fight for 40 years has been to defend the fullness of the Catholic faith. However, it is not true to say that the unity of the Church is only based on the faith. If you take a catechism, open your book and you see the question about the unity of the Church, well, the answer is that the Church is one because the Catholic believes the same doctrine, receives the same sacraments, and also are governed by the same head. There are three principles of unity in the Church. So definitely today, the fight for the faith is what is the priority. However, we cannot lose sight on the other factor, on the other principles of unity in the Church. So it is important to keep in mind the role and the mission of the Pope in the Church. It's the visibility of the Church which is in question here. The Society of St. Pius X, after Archbishop Lefebvre, has never taken a sede vacantis position where we would say that there is no Pope anymore and so on. So whenever the Pope asks us something where there is no reason to not obey, well, we have to obey. There is no choice. When the faith is not in question, when it's not something that goes against the moral principles, well, it's a recognition of the visibility of the Church. Today, I think we are asked an act of faith in the Church. We have seen for many years, and we still see, a Church which is attacked on all sides and from even within the Church. We have seen so many heresies, we have seen so many abuses, errors, that we may forget that our Lord Jesus Christ still leads His church through the structures, the visible structures that He had founded.
Father, in light of what you just said about the faith, is it not the case today that the faith is threatened?
Well, the question of the faith is always there. It's definitely, that's the problem in the church today, and the society has always stood for the defense of the faith. So, yes, it's a matter of faith in a certain point of view. However, the matter which is discussed here, which is a recognition by Rome of the Society of St. Pius X, is mostly a question of prudence. If the faith is not compromised, and if we can stay as we are, well, to go forward then is a question of prudence. And Bishop Follet has been very clear on these two questions. There is no way that we would accept to compromise the faith.
Father, to go one step even further, what would you say to the argument that even to accept a recognition by Rome would be a compromise?
It's an interesting question. It's one of the major objections to a recognition of the society today. Because we have seen so many errors in the church in the past decades that would be being recognized, would that be by itself a compromise on the faith? Well, no, because once again, we have been discussing with Rome the doctrine, and Rome knows exactly our positions. And our position on religious liberty, on ecumenism, is public, is known. And we have made no statement, and we have no intention of making any statement of backing down on this fight for the faith. The recognition of the society is a different matter than this fight for the faith. Would you say that in 1970, when Archbishop Lefebvre made a request for a recognition of his newborn society, or when in 88 he signed the protocol, was Archbishop making a compromise on the faith by the simple fact that he asked the blessing of the Church for the society that he was founding in 1970 and in the process of the protocol in 1988? No, Archbishop Lefebvre never compromised on the faith. And the situation today between the Society and Rome is similar to the situation of 1988 with the possible protocol of that time.
Father, in light of recent circumstances, some seem to think or worry that the silence and secrecy which has surrounded recent events should actually be a cause for concern. The argument goes something along the lines of, if something is true and good, why shouldn't it be in the open for everyone?
You know, the privacy about certain matters are normal things in life. They are everywhere, and every priest knows that you cannot share a lot of information that we receive. And I'm not talking here about the seal of confession, but of other things. And a superior, a priest, even in his apostolate, has to make decision knowing certain things that he cannot share. That's part of life. And it's true also for a businessman. It's true for a father of a family. You don't explain to your children every reasons why you make a decision. So it's a normal part of life. There is nothing surprising about it. The privacy that goes on between Rome and the Society of St. Pius X is a necessity in the actual circumstances of the church. Why? Well, because we know the pressure that can be put on Rome as well as on Bishop Follet by the media, by even by anyone. And when you are making such discussions, well, you need to be able to make a decision without pressure. The responsibility of Bishop Follet is not to follow one group of people or to follow one group of pressure. It's to make a decision in conscience of what is right or what is wrong. That's his responsibility. So the privacy about all of what's going on with Rome is normal, and it's definitely not a sign of wanting to hide things.